So I'm Marley. I know Hannah, we had a brief chat yesterday. I don't know if you know Leah, but Leah, you are the perinatal specialist. And I'm sure Leah will explain a little bit about what she does in a minute. But we've been kind of thinking about this and working on this for several months, and we wanted to kind of form almost like a little community of health professionals and people who work in the health and wellness and perinatal sector, who want to kind of step beyond the ward, as it were. Not everyone's going to be working in the NHS, but I think there's a lot of us who work within healthcare that are very entrepreneurial and want to kind of step outside and do a bit more of our own thing. Some people want to leave the healthcare system completely. Some want to kind of have a bit of a balance of working in healthcare but also running their own business on the side. Some people have set things up already. Some people are thinking about it. So we kind of wanted to bring this little sort of session to everybody, and hopefully you'll get a little bit of value from it. So if we end up teaching some of you how to suck eggs, but hopefully you'll get some value from it. As a kind of way to position yourself as a key, not key person of interest, but as a kind of authority figure in your niche. And I think a lot of people that signed up for the webinar today, because I think there's probably about 15 people, I think, all in all, but most people have a background in perinatal health, but it's really for anybody who's in the health and wellness sector. So I'm not going to drone on about myself and how I got here, but just very, very briefly, 6 years ago, I was working in the NHS, and I worked part-time because I think I was pregnant with my 5th baby at that point. And I've always been really, really interested in teaching. And I always knew that I wasn't going to just spend my whole life, my whole career working within the NHS and the shifts and the night shifts and everything. I always wanted to do something else. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to teach people on a wider scale. And that's why I then kind of set up the whole Instagram thing and went from there. And since then, I've published a book, become a speaker. I speak at a lot of different events. What else do I do? Consulting. I do work with brands, and it's really kind of given me, I still work as a midwife independently as well, but it's kind of given me a new sort of leash on life, and not feeling like I've got the ropes tied around me, which a lot of us have when you work within the NHS. So that's kind of my story in a little bit of a nutshell. I don't know about you, Leah, because I know you're not a healthcare professional, but you've kind of got a similar story in that you manage your time and
absolutely. Yeah. So I started really focusing on the perinatal period back in 2017, and I am a mother of 4. I was at that time a military wife, and for those of you that are will know what that's like. You're basically a single parent Monday to Friday, and I wanted to start my own business because I wanted to be able to be there for the kids as the sole consistent parent, and that was my driving force at the time. The passion came from personal experience where I had my own perinatal journeys. I was originally told I'd never have any children, so it was quite a mental shift for me. And being able to have my own business meant that I had the freedom and the flexibility, which later on in life then became more advantageous as I developed chronic illnesses. And we will discuss as we go through, but I'm now at a point where I am between the UK and the Caribbean mostly, and I have the flexibility because of the way I've set my business up. I can work where I want, when I want. I work solely with those that align when it comes to ethics and values, and I've got the freedom to choose when, where, and how I work. And that's the sort of information that we want to share with you guys, so that you too can build the sort of business that reflects your lifestyle, rather than being a serial entrepreneur that has to fit into any form of mold or sit in any type of box. We want you to build it around you and your needs. So that's why we're sharing with you today the 7 steps for you to become the expert in your niche.
Fabulous. And also briefly, so most of your work comes directly to you, doesn't it? I mean, you don't have to necessarily go out kind of seeking.
It does. So I am
Work.
So Marley is the one that is great with content. I'm not so much the content side of things. I focus a lot on networking and referrals, which you do as well. And yeah, so most of my work now comes through word of mouth recommendation, which is a really powerful tool, which is why as we go through today, we'll talk a lot about how to build your network, have the right circle around you, the right people, be in the right environments and things like that.
So sort of save any doubt, this next slide that you can see up here is kind of breaking down, you know, why you might want to raise your profile. The most obvious one is to gain more clients for your service. So, you know, whether you're a baby massage instructor or a postnatal fitness instructor or a coach or a mentor, or any kind of business that you run, it's at the moment, I think with social media as well, because there's so many people out there, a lot of people are regurgitating the same content, the same thing. And one of the things that I say to people is, don't just post for the sake of it. It's just time wasting. If you're gonna post something that someone can just find on Google, or that 10 other people before you have posted, just don't bother. Because it's a complete waste of time. Engagement is really low. I mean, it's been low for me actually on Instagram recently. So I find that, you know, I really have to kind of think more about what to post. But anyway, don't want to digress. So yeah, so people who want to get more clients for their health and wellness service, and also some of you might want to think about the potential for wider opportunities, like creating courses. I mean, I went from creating face-to-face antenatal courses to doing digital ones that people can access all over the world, really. Collaborating with brands, and I know that's not everyone's cup of tea. I mean, I do collaborate with brands. I choose them very carefully. I turn away more than I actually work with, but collaborating with brands, because at the end of the day, talking about money is often a bit of a taboo in healthcare, right? It's almost like we're kind of drawn to this health and wellness space to help everybody, help people. And no one likes to talk about the fact that midwives, for example, I don't feel that we're paid enough within the NHS. You go to America and they're paid like twice as much as we are. But no one wants to talk about the fact that actually you can be in a caring profession and still want more, and still want to be able to live comfortably. And, you know, we have mortgages, we have rent to pay, we have children to feed. So there's nothing wrong with thinking, actually, why not go after that opportunity? Yeah. So aside from brand collaboration, speaking engagement, speaking opportunities, consulting for various organizations like educational institutions and brands as well. And also for those people who do still want to stay within an organization, working as an employee, as well as perhaps having something on the side. If you raise your profile, if you become that expert that everyone wants to go to, then you position yourself as an industry expert, and that can then bring more exciting opportunities and lucrative employment opportunities for you. So those are really the kind of three key reasons that make people want to fly high as an expert.
Yeah, and it's also why we want to bring this to you with authenticity as well, because there are highs and there are very much going to be lows. And oftentimes I've watched a few webinar intros where they're like, oh, you can do this and you can do that, and you'll find at the bottom there's very small print where we cannot guarantee success, this, that and the other, but they're not sharing the truth of how it's a bit of a challenge. And we see these graphics that people produce, and it shows that it's a bit of a up and down journey, but no one's really talking about when you get your first few no's and how disheartening that can be. And actually changing the mindset around that is really important, because when you get your no, it's just a redirection. And there's a lot of stigma around changing the direction of your business, or changing the narrative, or your branding, or anything like that. I remember when I changed the name of my brand, and I had to change all of the images and everything else, change websites, all of those things, very annoying. But the reason I did it was because I found out that certain terminologies associated with the work that I was doing had negative connotations for me as a Black woman historically. So for me, it was really important to change, but the outward perception, it was very confusing to some. And that was a real hurdle in my business. But further along down the journey, it's been really advantageous for me to have changed that. It was difficult at the time, and they're the sort of truths that we want to share with you, but also, and this will be in our retreat and things like that, how you then navigate those experiences without it having a detrimental effect to you as an individual, your families, and also your business.
Yeah, and keeping your head up as well, because it's so easy, isn't it, just to kind of give up on things and think, oh, sod it, you know, I can't be bothered to.
Absolutely, I'll go get a job.
Yeah, I think what might be quite handy actually is if those who are on live, if you could perhaps just let us know what it is you do, in terms of what your profession is, what your kind of specialism is, what your niche is, and also what you're hoping to achieve. So this slide here talks about goals. I think we need to, and I've done this, had to sit there very carefully, and I only did this quite recently, sort of within the last year, and think, what is my goal? What am I actually trying to do with this? I remember sitting there looking at my Instagram, thinking I'm producing all this content. And this is kind of back in the day when I was creating these little doodles and trying to share as much pregnancy-related information as possible. I'm thinking, I'm doing all this, spending a lot of time doing this, but what actually am I trying to do with this? You know, where is this actually taking me? So like we said previously, is it just that you just want to increase your client base and that's it, nothing else? You know, or do you want to work with brands and organization? Are you passionate about writing an ebook or becoming a published author through a publishing house? Do you want to use the knowledge that you have and create a course so that it's more accessible to people everywhere? Are you interested in becoming a speaker? Because not everyone is. Not everybody wants to get up on a stage and talk in front of 100 or 1,000 people. You know, so identify what exactly it is that you want to do, because raising your profile can help you with any one of these. You know, there's nothing worse than and more time consuming than spending hours and hours and hours sort of reaching out to people to tell them about your business. And it can become really disheartening when you think, great, you know, I've just qualified as a doula. I'm going to put a load of posts on Instagram and I'm going to get, you know, clients coming to me, and that doesn't tend to happen. Doesn't tend to happen like that. It could be really, really difficult. Or I'm going to go and hand out some leaflets in the local GP clinic, or put something up in Sainsbury's, or, you know, send a few text messages out to my friends and get them to spread the word. And then it just becomes really disheartening when, you know, you don't get any clients. Mm-hmm. So it's really good to kind of think about what you want to do, what your goal is, and then these 7 steps that we're going to share in a second can kind of help you with that. So Claire, clinical specialist in parent-infant relationship service, lead for neurodivergent parents. That's interesting. Mm. And is that within the NHS trust, or do you kind of do that on the side as a service-based business? NHS, okay.
So I think it's also important to think when you do set your goals, often, again, there's this really strong narrative of you set your goal, you work towards this specific goal, there's no deviation, and all goals are individual. So for example, I don't do New Year's resolutions because I've never stuck to them, if I'm 100% honest. And it's not New Year, new me. It's New Year, same me. I'm not changing.
Just going down
yeah. Exactly. I knew that I wanted to work with families. I knew I wanted to work more commercially. And I wanted a little bit of everything. And that sounds very crazy and very greedy, but and a lot of my neurodivergent colleagues will say the same things. It keeps your interest, it keeps you excited, it keeps that flame burning for you. So I wanted to work business to consumer, but my larger goal was to be business to business. And although they are different paths, they're all within the same niche, they're all within the same genre. All of my work is in the perinatal sector. It is all around the experiences of intergenerational and other forms of trauma. And all of my work is relative to both individuals, families, but also to organizations. For example, I can support families, but equally, I'm really excited about now the courses and the education that I'm providing going into larger organizations like universities and NHS trusts. Now, that goal took me a longer period of time, because you have to build those relationships, you have to have the credibility, you need a certain element of profitability to get there, because you can't necessarily move in without having the software and the resources. But when I'm working with families, I need the skills, I need obviously my insurance, and I need to be able to have that compassionate work ethic. So that was something that was more attainable quickly, and I didn't need a huge budget for, because again, we have to be honest, money. So having goals at different levels, having tiered goals, is something that, and again, during the retreat, we'll tell you a bit more about that afterwards. During the retreat, we really do delve into that, because we want you to have the short-term goals that will help boost your confidence massively, but also the long-term goals to help you achieve the financial freedom that you're looking for, to if it's for an altruistic nature, if it's for just personal achievement. Those big ones are what we thrive for, but the little ones are what keep us going in the meantime.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so before we go into the 7 steps, you don't have to do this, but I just want everyone to kind of think about what is, if anything, what is kind of holding you back from being where you want to be. Is it time? Is it distractions, children, or work, being absolutely exhausted from going into your day-to-day PAYE job? Is it something else? You know, is it stress? You know, what is actually, you don't have to say, you know, tell us what it is, but you know, what actually is kind of holding you back from achieving these goals? And I'm going to start on the 7 steps now, and I'm hoping that this will kind of be motivational, and to be able to give you some actionable steps that you can kind of use moving forward. Mm-hmm. So I think the first and foremost is, when we think about the word expert, you know, most people say, I'm not an expert, you know, so and so is an expert, and you'll talk about somebody else that you've seen on TV, or someone else that you've seen do a speech or something, and what I say to people is, well, why is that? Why do you think that person, is it because they're on telly? Is it because they've got 200,000 followers? Why are they an expert and you don't consider yourself as an expert? Being an expert doesn't mean that you have to know everything about everything. Goodness me, I don't know everything about everything at all. I mean, my knowledge in relation to pregnancy and birth is good, but I certainly don't know it all. We need to be learning continuously, and what I like to say is that experts were always students first. They were always at that early stage at some point. Staying informed does build credibility. When you have someone who shares information that is like a new bit of research, or just or a new study or something that is relatively new, then you're going to have a lot of people who, that's the first time they've heard that. So then they're going to be more likely to come back to you to see what, you know, your opinion on future news and future research is. Take courses that are relevant to your niche. Now, me and Leah were talking about this a couple of days ago, about how over the years we've done so many courses. A lot of them, I mean, I did an aromatherapy for childbirth course probably about 2 or 3 years ago now. I've never actually used it in practice, so I've never actually used it with someone who's giving birth. And I do think to myself sometimes, what was the point in that? But actually, I did learn a lot from it, and then I then relay that knowledge to other people. I'm talking about ways to kind of help people get through labour, but I haven't actually used it practically in a childbirth setting. So take courses that are relevant to your niche. What was that course you told me that you took, Leah, a while ago, and you said you've never used it?
So I'm actually a gym instructor and PT, and because I wanted to do my pre and postnatal fitness, I also did exercise to music, which I've never used. And I did all of those because I wanted to get enough credits to then go on to my pregnancy massage. So they're all relevant, and actually I've used them when working with families. I don't use them now, and I've never used Pilates apart from because I like it myself. So
It's valuable. It is valuable then.
it gives me insight when we're talking about the physiology and anatomy. But for example, a lot of my work now is around teaching and educating on trauma and obstetric violence and racism. So I'm not putting it into action, but it helped me on my journey, and it's given me a wider perspective. So I think it was my husband that told me about this. All of the things that I've done over the years, they may not seem relevant, but actually I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't have taken that step on this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always say, don't ever look at anything that you've done in your past and think, oh, that was a waste of time. I don't believe that anything is a waste of time. I always think that you end up using, I did a degree in broadcast media and then went straight into midwifery. And lots of people said to me, oh, what a waste of time doing a degree in broadcast media. And I'm thinking, actually, I've kind of combined being a midwife with the media side of things, Read industry books, follow thought leaders. So I quite regularly will go on to YouTube and listen to, or even listen to podcasts from people that I know I can learn a lot from. Listen to success stories of other professionals in similar fields. And I tend to do this not to necessarily copy people, but for inspiration, to know that actually they were at the same point that I was, and they've kind of got to this level, and why can't I? Because I think a lot of us do have that self-doubt. Keep up to date with current affairs and learn for I know 10 minutes to most of us is actually a lot. If you ask me to find 10 minutes in a day, I'll be thinking, when am I going to find 10 minutes? 10 minutes is a lot of time to try and find. But if you can, I'm not saying listen to a whole podcast. Listen to a 10-minute segment, read an article. One of the things that I don't know if this is new news, by the way, because someone told me this years ago, and you might already all know this. But one of the things that I set up a while ago was on Yahoo News. You can actually get the news configured to be delivered to your inbox either every day, every week, every month, based on keywords. So my keywords are pregnancy, birth, childbirth, midwifery, midwife. So every day, any news articles that have been released from all across the web, I mean, you can set it to like UK or, set depending on your location. Say, for example, I don't know, I'm not even going to say the Daily Mail because that's, no. Let's say this is the Telegraph.
Guardian.
Guardian publishes an article on some latest bit of research. Then if it's got the word pregnant in it, or pregnancy or midwife, that'll be delivered straight to my inbox. So I'll get a kind of summary at the end of the day of all the latest news articles, and then I'll look at my email and then I'll decide whether to go ahead and read it or not. So that kind of cuts out time, because it's really difficult, I think, keeping up to date in everything. It's just absolutely impossible. So try and learn something new, 10 minutes each day. So step one is to be continuously learning. You'll be doing that throughout your life. We all know that.
Another great resource is Blinkist. So again, finding the time to prioritize education can be really overwhelming. Blinkist is really good because it will summarize audiobooks for you. Now, most books are now available in audio format, and with so many wonderful books and great authors out there, it can be really difficult to know which one next, especially if you attend multiple book clubs. I'm just talking to myself here, but it will just give you like a 10-15 minute summary of the book with the really key points, and you can kind of either just take that information, or that can be it can give you insight so that you can say, oh, actually, I do want to read this one, or I don't want to read that one, and just cut out a bit of the timing for you. But finding things to make all of this stuff easier, there's no crime in making life easier for yourself. It doesn't always have to be overcomplicated or complex and overwhelming. And again, this is also thinking about making things accessible. Having the ability to just take those bite-sized chunks of information can be really useful when you're trying to raise a family or run a business whilst attend work, etc.
becomes a bit of a juggle, doesn't it?
It does, it helps.
And that's kind of moving quite swiftly on, quite nicely on, from that point, mastering your time management. I think I'm probably the master of procrastination. I've got better at it over the years, but I think yeah, constantly thinking about, oh, you know, I could do this and I could do that and I want to do this. Just do it, you know. I think we spend a lot of time thinking, oh, it's got to be perfect. We have a lot of imposter syndrome, which I think Claire just mentioned, about struggling to see yourself as an expert, even though, like, Claire, what you've done, delivering sessions to 53 practitioners, what you just described is imposter syndrome, which we'll talk about in another step. But I think we use that fear or that sense of, oh, you know, it has to be absolutely perfect before I can release it to the world. And I felt like that for a long time, but that was just causing procrastination. Sometimes you have to just do things, even on a small scale, to start.
And I think,
and move forward.
Sorry to cut you there, but I do want to just give you some real life, real world examples. This webinar that you've all joined today, Marley and I are hugely busy at the moment and we don't get a lot of time together. And we could have postponed this webinar, for example, because we haven't heavily marketed it. But why? Because we know that we're going to be able to provide people with value. There's technology there now to support, and we can have it on replay and we can share the information with others. So actually, what us holding out could mean that someone misses out. And it's very easy to just assume that procrastination is the safer option, when actually just putting it out there is the safer option, because then it's accessible. Don't wait.
We could have quite easily sat here and thought, oh, you know what, let's do 4 weeks worth of marketing heavily and we'll get, you know, 200 people on the webinar. And we didn't do that. We've just spent the last few days sort of just, you know, reaching out to a few people saying, hey, do you want to come and join the webinar? But it's, you know, this is how you kind of make small changes, and this is how you make a start, and this is how you stop procrastination as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just keep it simple.
Yeah. Doom scrolling on social media. I'm sure many of you know what that is. Not necessarily even doom scrolling, just nonsense scrolling. And I don't know what's happened to my algorithm. I try not to open up TikTok too often, because I can find myself just swiping, and it's often a bunch of teenagers doing just silly dances. And then I think to myself, why have I just wasted 20 minutes? Like, you know, looking at all these videos when I could have been doing something else more productive.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's something that I think you have to kind of be conscious about, because social media can really draw you in, and before you know it, you end up wasting so much time.
And they've now added a feature in where you can reset your algorithm. For example,
oh, can you?
Yeah, my algorithm from Christmas Day was Beyonce, Aaron Pierre, and cats, because over Christmas, Aaron Pierre's not my fault. I'll just say that's not my fault at all. But I had to then reset it, and I'm now getting all new content, and I'm seeing other birth workers, I'm seeing other practitioners and business people, and I'm back into where I should be, so it can realign my focus. I can get motivation from others. Cats aren't going to motivate me. I'm just going to sit there and look at how cute and fluffy they are. So yeah, even if that helps, because I know some people say, oh, go on a detox. It's not always practical, and you may just not want to. So doing things like that can help just realign your focus a bit more and get you back in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, and sometimes actually, when you've had a stressful day, sometimes it does kind of act as a bit of a relief, just to sort of not think about anything too serious. I might try that that resetting the algorithm thing, because I think I need to do that on mine. Finding your angle and focus. So when I talk about finding your angle, we all have knowledge, and finding your angle is about trying to determine how you want to kind of bring that information to your audience. So you may well have knowledge about a certain aspect of healthcare or wellness, but most of us also have another kind of talent as well. So you might have a midwife that's also an artist, or you might have a doula that likes cooking, or is a bit of a chef or something like that, or everybody has a special talent. So
shout out to Illy.
yeah, exactly. So find what that is, and you can combine the two. So one of the things I did, I'm not an artist, by the way, by any means, but I like to do these little, I was always very creative as a child. So I like to educate about pregnancy and birth, and newborn care. And I also liked drawing, even though I'm not an artist. So I decided to utilize me doing these little doodles in a unique way to get my information across. And because it was unique, it was successful. So you might have a doula that likes to cook, and perhaps she's then has an interest in going off and writing a book about recipes for pregnancy and the postnatal period or something like that. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have something, if you have a special interest, think about how you can combine that with your knowledge to make your storytelling and your information sharing more enjoyable for you, and not just more enjoyable, but you stand out more. It's like you've got the singing dentist.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, you've got the dentist who's actually a dentist who likes to write these songs, these raps, these rhymes, and he sort of shares his content in quite a funny and humorous way, and that's why he's kind of built himself up and people can connect with him. So I'm just conscious about the time, because I know we've got another 5 bits to get through. Keeping a simple to-do list as well, and looking at it regularly as well. So getting a to-do list. I tend to do mine daily, so I have some notes that I go through, and then I check things off, because I'm very, very forgetful at the moment. If I don't write it down, I will forget it. So keep a simple weekly simple to-do list, and also set weekly goals and review them. And don't worry if you haven't got something done. So if you think, right, okay, this week I'm going to finish and launch my website, right? Then something comes up, something really important, that's more important than getting your website finished. So you haven't achieved that goal that week, but don't worry, it just means you can kind of focus on that for the week after. If you haven't achieved that because of something else, is it because you've been doom scrolling? Is it because you're procrastinating for other reasons? But having those goals and those tasks written down kind of helps to keep you a bit organized, as does time blocking. I mean, I don't know, what do you do, Leah? Do you use any particular software or anything to keep you in order apart from your calendar on your phone?
I like to keep it really simple. I have my calendar, and I mean, I put links in my calendar all the time, but also I know, so for me personally, I don't mind working outside of the 9 to 5. Actually, I hate working solely within 9 to 5. So I will work in the morning, and at the moment my youngest is homeschooling with me. I'm not distracted or trying to split my time between her and work, because that's a challenge. And then once she's in bed, I will do the other half of my day, and it gives me a break. I get to enjoy the daytime without feeling guilty. I'm not then feeling really stressed and overwhelmed by the fact that, oh, I need to get this done, I need to get this out, because I know I've got that time later on in the day. And in your email, you can do things like set the timer so that it sends at 8 o'clock in the morning the following morning, so it looks like that I'm actively in office first thing in the morning, and things like that. It helps to work around the times that I am wanting to work. I am very, very productive at night, and I'm not an early bird. To the point where, as I said, I flip between the UK and Jamaica, and when I'm in Jamaica, I will be working sometimes at 3 a.m. time difference as well. So UK 3 a.m. No, Jamaica 3 a.m. And it just really helps me to block those periods of times guilt-free, but still give me the freedom to live my life in the way that I want to and be really present at those times.
And you have to do whatever works best for you, really, don't you? Everyone's family situation is different.
Yeah, I've got friends that absolutely hate the idea of working at night. They want to do 9 to 5, they want to finish at 5 o'clock, done, and then they can solely be focused in the evening when everyone comes home. So find out what works for you, do it guilt-free, but also remember to align your well-being with what you're trying to achieve within your business, because if you don't, it's the quickest way to burn out. And you want to still enjoy your work. We don't go in to be entrepreneurs to do something that we hate and we start to resent. So just make sure you block those times, it suits your lifestyle, and that you're happy.
Absolutely. And identify your distractions as well. And like I said before, when you're reviewing your to-do list or your goals and you realize that you haven't achieved something, just have a little look and see why is that, what's been distracting you, and what you can do to work on that.
You have the freedom to change your mind.
Exactly. Building your expert circle. So I don't think that I would have been able to achieve some of the things that I have achieved over the last 5 years without having a fantastic network of people some people that I can now call friends that I've met through social media. So many people that I've met through social media.
We met through social media.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I never knew Leah before Instagram, but you know, we've met a few times, and then you came to my wedding last year. Do you know what I mean? So I think, and for me, I don't know about anybody else, but for me personally, when I'm around like-minded people, and that doesn't mean just around another midwife, but around someone who thinks along the same path that I do, I just feel motivated, inspired, happy. You know, when we're around people that aren't like that, sometimes it tends to be draining, and it can bring you down. So like-minded people will often have a positive impact on our well-being, on our mental well-being, but also in terms of our business and entrepreneurship. You know, because you can often ideas bounce off people. You know, somebody might bring along an idea, you know, oh, I never thought of that, you know, I'm going to try that for my business. And networking also opens doors to referrals and collaborations. I've had lots of people come to me because so and so said go and see Marley, you know, I'll go and speak to Marley about that. That's happened so many times, and it's been fantastic. So I would absolutely say start to build your expert circle.
And that's exactly how I built all of my businesses. I've had previous businesses. I trained as a consultant and coach, and when I did it with the Referral Institute, and actually I have helped build other people's businesses basically by utilizing their networks. And I'm not talking about hitting up people you haven't spoken to since school and asking them, oh, do you want to try this product and things like that, because that can be really disheartening and very challenging, and it's not necessarily the most effective route. But actually utilizing tools like Givers Gain and making sure that you give a little bit of insight into who you are, and you're forming meaningful relationships so that people buy into you as well as the service or product that you're providing, and that they can then build that belief in you. And like Marley said, you may well then build friendships. I can see that, for example, Patrice is in here, and we started off networking, and we then became colleagues. We did some work together, and it's grown, and I actually see Patrice as more than just an acquaintance. We get on very, very well because we've connected. And when we move forward in business, when I think of counselling and things like that, I do think of Patrice, and I will signpost people because I've got that established relationship with her. It doesn't mean that we're going for coffee every weekend or that we have to phone each other every night, but having relationships that are meaningful with those like-minded people that have the same values, because that's very important as well. If your values don't align, then it's very difficult in business.
It's very tricky, yeah. No,
very difficult. Again, that's something we do dive into a bit deeper in the retreat and things, because that's really it can be difficult to navigate further along down the line. But yeah, network, build those meaningful relationships, and you will find that referrals come without you even requesting.
And there are networking events and chances to connect with people who are in your industry everywhere. You know, it doesn't take much to go along and find some of these. But I would definitely recommend to network, and also to partner with people that are complementary to what you do, and whether that's just to do an Instagram live, or whether that's to do a webinar together, or or maybe even create a course together or something. I always say 2 heads are better than one.
Absolutely.
You know, 3 heads are better than 2. Sometimes too many cooks can spoil the broth, you know. But I definitely think when you've got more than one person in terms of ideas coming together, and you think about, well, they can reach out to their network as well. And then what you tend to find is, especially with social media, when you've got more and more people that you've kind of, you know, I scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing, and you've worked together, they will share your content, you share their content, and then you grow, and more people hear about you, more people hear about your work, more people know about you,
and you continue to learn as well. So I always strive to find people that know things about things that I don't, because you're never going to know everything, as we said at the beginning. And actually having someone that complements your work and can fill in the gaps, or you can fill in their gaps, it just really works.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing you might want to consider as well, I mean, it's not possible for everybody, but mentorship and coaching, and that doesn't always come in the form of like one-to-one, which can become very, very costly, but like even group coaching programs as well, where you end up learning but networking as well. That can really kind of help to keep you on track.
Perfect combination, isn't it? And that's something that we will be bringing out later in the year.
Okay. Prioritizing health and setting boundaries. Now, most of us already know that, you know, your health directly impacts your performance. If you're not eating properly, you're not drinking properly. I'm not great at, you know, I've got a gym membership, but I never seem to find time to go to the gym. And my husband's always saying to me, oh, you know, you can find time. And I'm like, yeah, I probably could actually. When I'm sitting there for 20 minutes scrolling through TikTok, I could probably be in the gym doing something. So yeah, he's actually right. But yeah, I mean, look after your body, because sometimes we tend to sort of work ourselves to death, and we don't look after ourselves physically and mentally. And talk about the mental side. Relationships with people, and I'm not just talking about you know, intimate relationships. I'm talking about friendships, and I have friends who I have to be very careful on how much of my time I give to them, because it can be very, very draining. Some friends that I love dearly, but I just cannot. I have to kind of prepare myself to be around them, because I know this is going to be a long one. This is going to be a draining one. This phone call is going to be, let me set aside an hour to speak to this person, because it's going to be a long, draining call. And then I have to think something positive to do afterwards. So, you know, become aware of who those people are, if you do have anyone that's toxic like that in your life, and not saying completely cut yourself off from them, but just be careful.
Boundaries.
Because set boundaries. That's a perfect word. And jumping down, you know, saying no to things that don't align with your goals. Don't feel like you always have to say yes. I was always a yes person. Yes, okay, I'll do that. Yes, okay. Until it got to the point where it's like, I'm just saying yes to everybody for everything, because I was a bit of a people pleaser. But it gets to the point where you're like, no, you know, you can't say yes all the time. Sometimes the answer has to be no. And you don't always have to give explanations either. You know, no is a full sentence.
It is, yeah. And sometimes when we think of our work, especially when we're working in the health and well-being sector, we do have to consider, because there is an element of emotion that goes into our work. Do we have the emotional capacity to take on anything if we have, I don't know, if you're delivering information that is particularly emotive, do you then have the capacity to hold any emotion that someone else is giving you, or do you need to prioritize the work that you're doing that day? And just making those adjustments so that you can align yourself and not reach burnout is really, really important, especially in this sector. I'm sure there are so many people that I meet on a daily basis that have experienced or witnessed burnout because of that fact. So building all of these elements, I mean, I'm a chronically ill person, registered as disabled, and it took me a very long time to learn that actually I have to know my limits. I have to be strong with my boundaries. If I don't respect my boundaries, no one else will anyway, and that is personal and professional. So just making those adjustments, which is why when you're building a business, it is about the person. For years, the narrative was, it's business, it's not personal. No. Business is personal. When you're building your business, it's personal to you. And therefore, you need to make sure that you've set yourself up and your business appropriately to make sure it maintains your well-being.
and especially in this industry, because you are your business. You know, people come to
Absolutely.
you for you. So surround yourself with supportive people, and if you can, I mean, you know, the whole morning routine thing, I found that very, very difficult to get on board. I can do that more at the weekends, very, very difficult in the week with the school run and everything. But one thing I have stopped doing is getting up in the morning, getting my phone and looking straight on social media. I will get up in the morning and get out of bed and go and get a drink, go and get a hot drink, and get myself and my children ready. And then social media can wait. But I did used to be that person who would get their phone straight on there whilst I'm still laying in bed. So it's just being mindful, surrounding yourself with positive people, and trying to kind of get rid of the toxic ones from zapping too much of your time. Step 5, consistency. So staying consistent builds trust and authority. So there's no point kind of posting something and then forgetting about it for 2 months and then coming back. You know, people will remember those who show up regularly. And in a second, we'll go on to talk about the fears of showing up regularly, which a lot of us have. But show up regularly. Even doing something like a couple of times a week, it doesn't necessarily have to be you sitting there talking to the camera and making a video, but just doing something, whether that's on Instagram, whether that's doing something on Google, like if you've got a Google profile and you're updating some information on there, putting something on your blog, on your website, just doing something, being around, you know, so that Google picks up your name because you're constantly putting things out there on whatever platform it is or website that you want to use. You can use Canva's quite good for branding, but I mean this webinar isn't necessarily all about branding, but if you are thinking about, you know, if you haven't got a logo and all the rest of it, don't worry too much and focus too much about looking pretty in colours, and because I think that's another thing people do. They're more focused on their Instagram squares, looking on aesthetics rather than the content they're putting out, to the point where they think, oh well, I've put a pink post up, so I've got to do a blue one now because it's blue, pink, blue, pink, blue, pink. They don't care about the content they're putting on there as long as the colours look right. So yeah, but you're sharing pointless information that no one really cares about and no one's going to engage with. So use a simple platform like Canva for branding, because a lot of the time the templates are already there, you know, and it's quite easy to navigate. And choose your platform wisely. You don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to be on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, what else have I missed? Twitter or X, whatever it's called, LinkedIn. You have not got to be absolutely everywhere. I would just choose 2, you know, have a website and then just choose 2 other platforms. You don't have to, because it does become overwhelming. I know I'm on about 3 or 4, but you don't have to be on lots of different platforms to you know, to raise your profile or to become an authoritative figure.
And I mean, I use Instagram mostly. I network more on LinkedIn, so I don't really post content there, but I have conversations with businesses and organizations there. And I utilize YouTube because I can keep my videos there and I can send links. So that's a good example of using what you need rather than what's trending. It's so easy to just fall into trends, but actually there's so much noise there, you may miss your audience anyway. So find your audience and be where they are.
Yeah, exactly. Be where they are. Don't just be somewhere for the sake of it. Overcoming fears. And I don't know if there's anybody who's never gone through this. I mean, even the most super confident people or the ones that come across as being super confident, they will still have fears. They'll still have fears of rejection. What about if they think that what I'm talking about is rubbish? I go through that all the time still. And I think it's just your mind's way of making you kind of keep on top of things, you know. Fear of rejection, imposter syndrome, you know, why am I an expert? Why is anyone going to listen to what I say? There's always going to be someone out there that doesn't know what you know. There's always going to be someone out there where you bring a little bit of knowledge to them. And when we're talking about rejection, these are things like you post something on social media, an opinion perhaps, or a bit of content, and somebody doesn't like it. You know, there's always going to be that person who completely disagrees with what you're saying. And that can make you think, oh my gosh, oh no, maybe I shouldn't have posted that. But no, it's just a part of life. We don't all have the same opinions, and people don't share the same values, and there's always going to be somebody who doesn't agree with what you say. Doesn't make it wrong, doesn't make you wrong, doesn't necessarily make them wrong. It's just the way it is. And there are some platforms that are more like that than others, where people can sometimes get, you know, really nasty. I tend to try to avoid, where possible, posting too much controversial stuff. Occasionally I've posted things that are a bit controversial, and then, you know, the comment section I've had to turn it off because I've had like 5,000 comments and it's just gone crazy. And if you ever feel that it's affecting your mental health, delete, block, delete people. Don't ever feel worried about, you know, getting people out of your internet space.
Those boundaries. I'm the opposite. I tend to go for the more controversial stuff, but I am also very quick to block and delete, and that's not because I'm trying to restrict any freedom of speech or opinion, but if it's something that's harmful or going to be harmful to my audience, I'm not sharing that. And that's one of my boundaries. Now, if we're engaging in communication and it's respectful, absolutely, I'm here for opposing opinions. And again, it may be a learning opportunity, but if it's harmful, absolutely no.
Yeah.
And I mean, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, talking about showing yourself as well. So I don't know if there's anybody on here that does show themselves in videos and things like that, because I think a lot of people are afraid of being in front of the camera, afraid of putting videos on social media or on their website or anywhere, and perhaps not the sort of person that would want to stand up and be a speaker. I used to kind of hide behind a logo many years ago, and when I did my first video, I absolutely hated it. I hated the sound of my own voice. And so I say to people that if they feel like that, then just edge yourself in gently. You know, do something, do a voiceover on something, on a video that you can create in Canva, if you're worried about kind of showing yourself on video first. And then when you do it, just do it for 10 seconds. I mean, people do connect more when they can see you. They either see a picture of you or they can hear your voice. They remember those things, you know, rather than trying to interact with just a logo that you've created in Canva. So it can be very difficult to kind of get past those fears. But honestly, you will connect more with people when they know your face, they know what you look like, or they know what you sound like at the very least. So that's something I think to work on as well, if you don't already do that, that is.
Yeah. And we've kind of touched on it a couple of times today, but imposter syndrome is such a crutch for many people, and it was for me as well. I put out a post a couple of weeks ago about it, and how it's really just a societal perception of a perceived limitation. It's not real, and it doesn't belong to you. And if you choose not to do it, and that's based on your own beliefs, needs, or wants, that's fine. But it's not because you don't belong in a space. There's nothing to do with being an imposter, as we all belong in this world, and there is space for all of us. And I always talk about keeping these virtual post-it notes, I almost said it wrong, keeping these virtual post-it notes like at the forefront of our brain. And the big one for me that I've always kept there ever since coming to this realization is that I was brought into this world. I have a place in this world, as does the ants and the birds and everything else and the cars on the road. I have my place in this world. I'm not an imposter here or anywhere. And I'd like you to take that away as well.
It's fantastic. And I guess that kind of leads into the last point, which is that daily affirmations and journaling. Well, not necessarily journaling, but the daily affirmations, absolutely. And that last kind of quote that you just said, Leah, I think reflects that perfectly. Okay, so the last step is managing your expectations and seeking help if needed. Because sometimes we want to do it all. We want to keep everything that we know to ourselves. We want to do it all. We want to be the spokesperson, the salesperson, the marketing person, the everything person. But we can't always do it all. Sometimes we need to delegate. And it's not always easy when perhaps if you haven't got a big budget, you know, if you can get a virtual assistant, fantastic. If you can get somebody to help build a website and you can pay them, wonderful. It's not always easy. So because of that, these things can take time. Growth takes time. There's absolutely no shortcuts. It's an ongoing process. But don't ever feel, you know, bad about asking for help or outsourcing if you need to, because we cannot do it all.
but also share that as an opportunity, see it as an opportunity. It's often, just because we are unable to do it, it doesn't mean it's not a learning opportunity for somebody else. Having the opportunity to work with maybe a younger student or someone that's new to the industry that wants to get some sort of experience and insight, they may well be happy to volunteer. And just so that they can learn from you. So actually you can give back in another way that's not monetary remuneration. So have a think about if you can utilize that as an option for your business as well.
Yeah. And also, you know, celebrating small wins. Sometimes we sit there, we do loads of work through the week, and we think, oh, I've got nothing done. But actually, if you sit down and you think, well, actually, no, I did this, I completed that, I got that off my to-do list, I finished this week. When you think about it, actually, you know, you tend to look back and think, actually, I have done quite a bit. You know, I have got quite a lot done. So yeah, so don't come down too hard on yourself, and don't compare yourself to other people either. So here are some actionable steps. So I know we've sort of gone on a little bit. Here's some actionable steps which kind of combine all that we've just spoken about. Identify your goal, what it is you're trying to achieve. Is it you know you want more clients? Is it that you want to publish a book or become a speaker? Set some time aside each week to focus on this. Focus on your growth. Focus on your learning. When you are looking at media streams, whether that's social media or your website or you know any kind of platform, try not to focus on any more than 2 in terms of updating content regularly, because otherwise, unless you've got some sort of software in place that can blast out content to all different social media platforms, but I would just try to, like what Leah said, go where your people are. You know, create a list of 10 content ideas. And don't give yourself necessarily a time frame that I've got to do 10 bits of content in a week. Just write 10 bits of content, 10 content ideas that you can write about, either as an article for your website or you know, a blog post, or something to go on YouTube, or something to go on Instagram, or something that you could submit as a guest post for a journal or something. But just write a list of 10 content ideas that combines your unique talent.
And then tie it to your intent or your impact, or dare I say it, the trends. Make sure you tie it to something that you're going to emotionally be activated towards wanting to do. So you keep that connection and make it personal to you. Yeah, exactly. Because then that helps you to stay authentic as well. And this is something which some people may have done or may not have done. But think of a list of 3+ people that you think might be ideal people to work with, so people that you know that you can align yourself with, and reach out to them for some form of collaboration. And then also identify 5 networking opportunities, events, courses, because even on courses you can network with people that are relevant to your niche, and think about over the next coming months going to these networking events, going on these courses. Don't compare yourself to other people, and also always remain authentic to yourself. Yeah. And I did share a link to join our WhatsApp group in the chat if you'd like to, so that you can have that accountability and also use it as peer support, but also an opportunity to network there as well. You'll also the idea is that we want to kind of create a small community of like-minded people that you know that are entrepreneurial, but we all kind of work within the health and wellness industry, to see how we can kind of support each other, really. Yeah. Which brings us to the upcoming retreat. So you asked, we answered, and we've moved the retreat to the UK. And it will be taking place on the 11th to the 13th of April in the Midlands. Now, the exact location is stunning, but will be revealed in due course. And the retreat will include your food, drink, flight refreshments, accommodation, but most importantly, the educational sessions and the well-being sessions. And you will have Marley and I there to share all of the knowledge. I mean, we've tried to, in a nutshell, give you a bit of insight into what we want to share with everybody, But over that weekend, we will be sharing all. You can ask us questions.
An hour isn't long enough, really, is it?
It's not at all. It was a real struggle trying to cut it down.
Yes.
And we'll have lots of, again, networking opportunities and activities so that we can put things into action, and we can essentially role play scenarios, so we can go back into our business feeling refreshed, but also energized with newfound information and hopefully some new relationships. And of course, there will be a wonderful goodie bag.
Can't have a retreat without a goodie bag.
It can't.
So I know we've kept you for more than an hour, but if anybody wants to ask any questions, then do feel free to pop them in the chat box. If you want to stay in touch, you can follow us at elevating.experts on socials. And we do have a lot of exciting things coming up, but some of them we'll be talking about at the retreat. But feel free to email us. At the moment, we haven't got a website. It's just us and our email address and our Instagram.
Perfectly imperfect. You can still contact us, and that's amazing.
You can contact us via email or via social media. But yeah, if there's any questions, if any of that needs clarifying or anything, then just let us know. But thank you, Hannah. Really appreciate you joining us from the UAE.
Thank you. It's been wonderful having you all. Again, I look forward to being in touch and hopefully seeing you all at the retreat.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.